Hi, welcome to the Shepherd's Rest Doc Talk. This is episode 166A.
I'm Cameron, this is Julie. This week's Torah portion, we are moving deeper into the story of Genesis, and we are starting at 25, verse 19, going to 28, 8.
Yes, and if you would like to see the previous years, it is 18, A and B, 72, A and B, 119, not A and B,
No.
and this year's 166.
Yeah, and it might actually be 19 A and B. I'm not sure. We'll have it right here which one it is.
Oh, it is 19 A and B. You're
Okay.
right.
That's right.
You're right.
It's right here. Anyway.
My bad.
All right, so let's start at the beginning, and we're going to look at actually 25, verse 20. And it says, Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah as wife, the daughter of Bethuel, the Aramean. Yeah, I need help all the time. Aramean. So I want to talk about the word Aramean for just a minute. You know, the reason why I want to talk about that is because at the end of the Torah portion in Deuteronomy 26, verse 5, we see that as Israel comes into the land, they're to say this kind of ceremonial discussion. Right. And it says, my father, the Aramean, which is interesting because we never see where Abraham, Isaac, or Jacob are ever referred to as the Aramean. Actually, in Genesis 14, verse 13, we see where Abraham is noted as a Hebrew. Right. Then we see where Joseph is considered a Hebrew. We see that in verses, chapter 41 of Genesis, and I think it's 39. Both, again, he's called a Hebrew. They're never considered
Aramean.
right.
I was waiting for you to say that.
That's it. However, we see only Laban and his family called that. So here's the thought. If that's the case, we have Laban is from Nahor, which is the brother of Abraham. Why do we have, out of one family, two different groups? They're called something different. Yeah. So I would suggest from Abraham continued on and from Nahor continued on. And there's something about the regions or the characteristics or something that I don't know, at least to tell you. You guys may be like, well, that's so simple, but I don't know it. That kept them apart.
So could it be that Abraham was an Aramean, but when he crossed over, he was now a Hebrew?
Absolutely. And Eber is said where the word Hebrew actually comes from. So I'm thinking there might be something about the characteristics of maybe the noble ones, or I don't know how you want to say it, but we may see a separation there that we weren't necessarily aware of, and that was between Nahor and how his family acted and Abraham and the way his family acted. And I bring this up because we see in Deuteronomy, like I said, 26, it actually is read as in our father, the Aramean, but it can be translated another way, and it can say the Aramean who sought to destroy my father. Now that's Laban. Oh. We actually see that in Genesis 32, where Laban is seeking to destroy Jacob. And Jacob is considered the father that they're speaking of because he's the one that came into Egypt and the one that left. So I just wanted to bring that up, that this is where we actually see the beginning of the understanding that Jacob is not considered the Aramean. That's right? Yes, the Aramean. He is considered a Hebrew. Now, names are so important in the way we see people's names and the way we can twist them. And I say that coming off of this discussion of the Aramean, because the Aramean is seen as something evil. Like I say, he sought to destroy, right? I mean, he not good said about that characteristic. And so then I wanted to go and look at the name Jacob, because we know in 25:26 that when Jacob is born, he's holding onto the heel, right? And the name actually just means heel grabber. It doesn't mean deceitful. That's not the meaning of his name. It means heel grabber. It's stating the obvious. Yeah. We've talked about this before, okay? He's probably defending his head and holding on to the heel in the process. And again, you know, the battle they had was probably who's going to get out first. Right. And the Esau thinks he won, but in all reality, he does not. Anyhow, so we have the heel catcher. We have just a simple name like that. And then we have Esau, who's red. But you know, the name Harry, so Adam, red, can also refer to blood. But we also see that Harry, I didn't realize that until this year, that Harry can also mean
like our friend Harry?
like a storm. I hope not. Like a storm, violent. What's it called? Like if your hair is really, really messed up, like it's
chaotic, or
yeah, that's not the word, but yes, like that. Just like you know, your hair's all messed up. So he came out
disheveled.
Red. Yes, that's actually the word, disheveled. He was all red and disheveled with the hair that was on him. Absolutely. But what about possibly his mannerism being disheveled? And we kind of see that as wanting to be a hunter and you know, sought for blood. Yet Jacob is said to just dwell in the tents. But it actually speaks of him as being complete, to mean just like Noah, righteous in the sight of the Lord. So when we let the Lord name him, he's righteous. When we let man name him, like we see in 27:36, where Esau is renaming him and saying, "Oh, good thing you named him Deceiver," because that's what he did. He caught my heel twice.
Right.
He didn't deceive me twice. He caught his heel twice. In other words, right when Esau thought he was going to break through and win, he didn't really win. That's how he caught the heel. He didn't get what he wanted. But I wanted to bring up again about name. So we don't want to let the world determine what the name looks like when God does. All right. But I don't know if we realize it. Yes, like grace.
Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we want to move it to be
just perverted.
Exactly. Redefined it so it fits us. You know, on that note of redefining things, if you really think about, we did the same thing in our U.S. history. We take our founding fathers of the country, and then we've made them just as corrupt as we are because it makes us feel better.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to have to try to be like that, my hero. Well, my hero, you know, he was sleeping around and he had slaves and did all the, you know, they just put all the negative on them so that we can feel better about ourselves. And the truth is, I would say that the church, the world, has done that with Jacob. We can feel better. He does deceive, or he lies, you know, but never does Isaac ever call him a deceiver. Never. And remember, he's very concerned about, don't let him even think of me as a deceiver. But anyway, I wanted to bring up in 25 verse 30, something that I saw. And it talks about the red stew. And he says, Esau said to Jacob, "Please feed me in that same red stew, for I am weary." That is why his name was called Edom. So Edom means like red. And I never thought of this before until this morning. But Edom, that's his renaming. You know, think about this. Abraham got renamed.
Jacob gets renamed. Right.
Jacob gets renamed. But so does Esau. And the rest of history, we don't call him Esau, we call him Edom.
Edom.
Right? Because that's our real battle. It started between Isaac. It started between Esau and Jacob, but it's going to end between Edom and Israel. Right. And I never really saw that.
Fight against flesh and blood, but it gets spiritual. And those are both their spiritual names.
Absolutely. And I would say that the renaming always seems to happen at a pivotal time. We see where new names are given in Isaiah 62:2 at the end, with new heaven and new earth, Gentiles are going to be given a new name. But it's a pivotal, here we go. It's that whole bringing in. We see even in Revelation, where Revelation 2:17 and 3:12, where a new name's given. But again, these are at the end of a journey.
Right.
So I would suggest that
as they're going into a new responsibility.
Right.
A new title.
Right. And now they need this name to reflect who they're going to be.
Right.
So I would suggest that Esau being renamed, or we're being told his name was Edom, comes from this event, that this was the pivotal moment for Esau. Esau had a birthright, and his pivotal moment was, are you going to hold on to it and see it for what it is, or despise it? And he despised it. He despised what the Lord gave. He fought really hard to come out of that womb first to get this, and then he despised what the reward was. And in this event in 25, I'm staying in 25, where we have the porridge being sold between 29 and 34 really brought me back to the event of Sarah's death and Abraham buying the burial plot. This is the time in which it is said that Abraham has died.
Okay.
Hence why the birthright is on everyone's mind.
Okay.
So this porridge, it's considered to be lentil stew, which is a common red stew that is a mourner's porridge.
Okay.
So you have Esau out hunting, doing his thing. Not necessarily mourning, sitting the 7 days of Shiva, but out doing what he wants. Then he comes in and he sees this and he just treats it as any old food. Just give me some. Feed me.
Yeah.
And then what happens? We have Jacob who purchases. He purchases. This is in the Bible to clearly show that a purchase was given to Jacob of that birthright. There's no doubt whose it actually was. There's no doubt who should have had that blessing because this is Jacob's. He got the whole package. He wanted it. All right. Just like Sarah, when Abraham, there was a death and then Abraham purchased. And when he purchased land. So there'd be no doubt for even future generations. Well, here we have Jacob, we have Israel and Edom who are fighting over that land and over that blessing. But here we have the documentation of no, it was purchased rightfully. Yes.
It also reminds me of Yeshua's time with
Go.
with the Passover, where Paul talks about some people take it and they're not worthy of it. So you have the Passover meal that is supposed to represent this death, burial, and resurrection that's bringing us into our new name, our new covenant, our new responsibility. But it's taken for granted because we just want it to save us from hell.
Oh my gosh, that is fantastic. Not even what I thought. That's fantastic. What a great thought. Wow. So where I was going to add in with the pattern wise, which that's a great one, even next step. So in between there is you have Messiah who died on the cross and then with that purchased from the enemy back his people.
Right.
He purchased so that he can give us a new name.
Right.
So
and to commemorate that, we do the Passover.
Absolutely. That's why I was like, it's right before that. Yeah, absolutely.
And
that's a fantastic
Can we be like
thought.
Esau and be like, yeah, just give it to me so I don't have to go to hell. I'll partake. Right. Or like Jacob and understanding what kind of responsibility comes with accepting this purchase.
And wanting that. Okay, so one last thing, and I won't be able to do this justice, but I'm going to give you some food to think on.
Okay, food for
chew on. Yeah. All right. So I'm just going to throw this out there. Let's say at the end of 26, 34, and 35, we have at the age of 40, Esau gets married.
Okay.
Well, remember Isaac got married at the age of 40. So he's following in his father's steps.
Right.
However, he marries Hittite women, which tells us he's up in Hebron area.
Oh, okay.
So I would suggest that at this point on, they're in Hebron, not Beersheba.
Okay.
The reason why I said that is because in 27 verse 40, Rebekah's fear is that Jacob is going to marry daughters of Heth. Again, that's in the Hebron area.
Okay.
So if she's concerned that these are all the women around he's going to marry, then they must be back in an area that the Hittites are ruling. So hence my head goes, wow, they're back up where Abraham was buried, which makes sense. That's where they owned land.
And they're burying him.
Exactly. Well, they would have already been, but this would be years later because they'd already gone to Beersheba. They've been in Beersheba for several years. And now they've returned.
Gotcha.
Now here's what we know. It's around age 40. So we don't know the years of what happened in 26 when they go down to Ge'er. We don't know exactly that whole age. But it's not necessary to know. But we have the age 40. And I bring that up because now let's just say he gets married, you see this. Oh, and I also wanted to say this in verse 35 where they were bittered of spirit because of these wives. That bitterness is not used anywhere else in the Bible. That's the only place. Which is significant because then when we go to 27:36 where we see that Rebekah says to Isaac, I am disgusted, or some say weary, with my life because of the daughters of Heth. Well, the interesting thing is that disgust or that weary has a small kuf.
Okay.
And the word can mean to be cut off. So what she's basically saying is, I feel like I'm diminishing. We're losing the promise because
being cut off.
Yes, because if Jacob also marries these women, we can't stay in the land. Yeah, because they will have married the cursed.
Yeah.
And so from there, Isaac responds properly. And in 28, he says, I need you to go off to your mom's family, and I need you to wed there. So here's the deal. When we read chapter 24 last week,
okay,
Abraham says, I'm old. I got to get my son married so that the promise will continue. Here in 27:1, Isaac says, I'm old. Let me give the blessing. Because Esau is already married. But out of the wisdom, however you want to say it, but out of the wisdom of Rebekah, she understood that, no, it dies with him. It lives only with Jacob.
Yeah.
So what's interesting is you take the whole Isaac's trying to give the blessing out. We literally have chapter 24 happening again where Isaac says the idea of, I'm grieved, you married wrong, and then going on to 28, hey, Jacob, I need you to go so you will finish it through.
Right.
Go and find, does that make sense? Go and find the wife, the bride here, because the promise cannot be completed without the bride. Hence Messiah. Hence what's going on now, the 3 days that we wait, put it into heavenly time as well.
Right.
3 days here, 3,000, 2,000, 3,000, because we are waiting, or he's finding that bride. This is a bridal journey, basically.
Yeah.
Here's who's the body, who's the bride, who's just got in by the skin of your chinny chin chin, But anyway, I just wanted to point out those few things. So while you're studying this week, you can really maybe try to piece some other pieces together. I guess what I find is not just reading it in order, but then when you start to see how scriptures within the same text affect each other, it just fleshes out the story more.
Yeah, very good.
So, anyway, we thank you very much for joining us, and we hope to see you next week. But first, we'll see you on the flip side with Julie and Acts.
Shalom.